What is up, guys? Today I'm filming a little commentary video. I'm actually really excited because I've been wanting to do more commentary videos, but I was just like, am I made for it? I was like a little shy because I was like petrified of missing something. And never ever like, I mean, I think I made commentary like stuff on my podcast, but never a full video. I always end up deleting it, and hopefully I don't do that today. If you're new, subscribe, like this video, comment, check out my other videos if you haven't already. Make sure you are keeping up with all my socials. Everything's linked down below if you haven't checked them out already. Trying to post vacations, and yeah, check out my podcast also. It's on Spotify, Pretty Open-Minded. Today we're going to be talking about a show called The Never Ever Mets. Basically, the show is about 7 couples that meet up, and they all are meeting their like boyfriends and girlfriends for the first time. They've been dating like virtually for like months, years. There's like even a couple on there that have been virtually dating for 12 years and never met. I'll get more into that a lot later. I do have some notes, so if I look down or I pull out my iPad, that's what I'm looking at, because I wrote a lot of notes on this episode. There is currently 2 episodes. This came out on HBO, and I think it's also on OWN, and you could also watch it on YouTube. I do want to mention that there is mentions of DV on here, because it got really abusive towards the end of the episode. So I do want to like mention like, yo, there is DV in this, because I did talk about it on my Instagram, about how there is DV in the first episode. Like, it got really heated in this really small argument to live together, and they also live with other couples along with that, and they see if the spark is still there, if it's a vibe, is it still the same offline versus online. Because I do kind of feel like I do kind of resonate with this, because if you guys remember, I did have like an online relationship with this guy that I met when I was 17 years old. We were like dating in a relationship. I can't say dating because I do feel like it was more like a relationship, but we never ever met. We always FaceTimed. And so I kind of resonated with this because I used to talk about him. I used to like vlog him. He was in my vlogs back in 2017, 2018, and I did make a video about him. I was in California when I talked to him, and he was in Florida, I believe, at the time, and we were both going to be moving out of states later on. And it was kind of cool because like he was pretty much there from the beginning to the end. Like, he was like one of my biggest supporters, and I was truthfully like head over heels over this guy. So this is kind of like if I ever met him and went into the same scenario. And I wish it was like around more, like when I was coming up. I did not see a lot of long distance relationships, and all the time they either would be like, oh my god, this is so cringe, or they're catfish, and you know, there's a lot of speculations around it. So I do feel like this is cool because everything is centered around the internet now. Starts off with a couple named Shay and Josh. They had virtually dated for 12 years. They had met on Facebook. There's not really much to say. It kind of just introduces the couples, and it talks more and more, and it builds them up. Let me talk about my first impression of Josh and Shay. Josh and Shay, first of all, I was really confused on how they had been talking for 12 years and never met when they were like full-grown adults. I don't know what state he lives in, but I know that she lives in Florida, and she's always asking like, why aren't you making the move? And apparently he does have kids. What I thought was interesting was that he has a toddler, and that he also has a teenager. He has a 13-year-old. So if you do the math, they've been talking for 12 years, and he has a 13-year-old and like a 3-year-old. It is a little bit skeptical, because I think she honestly thinks in her mind that they're in a relationship. But dating and relationship are like 2 different things, and like that's the thing that I've noticed in the show, is that people can't tell the difference between talking, and some of these people are basically in the talking stage still, but they got head over heels and they think they're in a relationship. And I also noticed that some people seem like they didn't establish like what they want in a relationship. They show Joanna and Aaron. There's 2 Aarons on the show. There's Aaron H and Aaron J. I don't know which one this is, but you'll know what I'm talking about, because there's an older Aaron, and there's also a younger Aaron, so I'll just say younger Aaron. So they've been talking for 9 months, and they had met online through virtual friends. So what I noticed about Aaron and Joanna is very expressional through her eyes. She is like very much like, I don't know, her eyes get big at the weirdest like times. Like, I can kind of relate with that, because but hers looks more scarier, and it's not like try to hide her facial expressions if something got her fucked up, is what I'm saying. With Aaron, I was a little confused, because I was like, he just kind of right off the bat, I was just kind of like feeling like they didn't have a lot of chemistry. It was just kind of like weird. I don't know. They are in the talking stage. They've been talking for 9 months, but talking stage in 9 months, I would be over it. Personally, I would be over it. Like me now, I would just be kind of over it. Like talking for 9 months and nothing's happening, I'd be kind of like, But what I'm confused about is that it feels like Aaron is like, I don't want to be rude or anything, but I feel like he kind of swings either one way, which is for the dudes, bumps butts, or he swings both ways, because it's just, he doesn't seem straight. Like, it's not like the way he dresses, it's just the demeanor that comes off. It's just the way that he acts. It kind of seems like he's kind of awkward, and he kind of seems very feminine. She seems very much like type A to me, and I was just like, oh my god, this is not gonna go well. I can already tell you that. I'm here for the ride, I'm here for the tea, and I'm here for the mess. So meet Sienna and her man, who is Brandon. Brandon is like 35 and she's like 44. A slight age difference. It's not really that big of a deal, but Brandon lives in Florida, and I don't remember where she lives at, but like I said, there's a lot of people in here that are in Florida, based in Florida, but Brandon has a toddler as well. But I don't think Sienna has kids, but they've been talking for 10 months, and yeah, these are like long formed talking stages, is what I've noticed too. So since Brandon has kids, he conflicts with them meeting up because of the kids. And since they are friends right now, Sienna wants it to go further and go past the friend zone, the friend stage, and go into more of a relationship. Have Sandia and her man Chris. This is the shortest talking stage, I believe, on this show. They have been talking for 3 months. Sandia is like 27, and I don't know how old Chris is, but right off the bat, Sandia is very more like a lot of facial expressions. Her facial expressions are very neutral. Like, you can't tell if she's happy, sad, or whatever. She just seems very neutral. She's very soft spoken. She's Haitian, so they are a lot of the times are very like religious, and she talks about how she wants to have marriage, all that stuff. She wants to go by the book, by the Bible, which is fine. If you're into that. Chris does not seem like that when I see him. Chris seems like very much like into designer, into like himself, like very enthralled into himself. I'm getting like a weird vibe already, because they seem very much like polar opposites when I see them. Sandia is very gorgeous. Like, she is so gorgeous. Like, I hope that she's a model, but I think she lives in LA, so that would be like a perfect time to do that. But she seems very quiet. I don't know if I mentioned that, but she seems very quiet, but she knows what she wants. And I feel like with their relationship, they haven't established what they are yet, like what the intentions are, and that's probably why towards the end it starts getting kind of messy with them. Like, Chris is kind of on here for clout and not necessarily for a relationship. So yeah, I do want to mention about what Sandia, she says like 2 things about what she liked about him, and then she goes straight into what she doesn't like about him. Apparently he is a womanizer. Do people still say that word? He's a womanizer, and he spends a lot of time in the strip club, and she doesn't like that, obviously, because she's religious. Next we meet Alexis and her man Dominique, and they've been in relationship for 6 months. So not really much to say about them. Okay, when I first saw Dominique, I was like, damn, he looks like the Dollar Tree version of Schoolboy Q. If you literally put it side by side, Schoolboy Q and him, it looks like him. I mean, Schoolboy Q is like way cuter in my opinion, but I don't know, it's kind of crazy. Get into Diamond and Aaron, the other Aaron, the older Aaron. So the older Aaron and him, Diamond and him have been talking for like 5 years. Kind of awkward because she gets in, like, the intro was awkward for me personally because she didn't really say a lot, like, again, she didn't really say a lot of good things about him. She just kind of was like, he hurt me 2 years ago, this time the third. Apparently he wanted to propose to another woman and he posted it all over Facebook when they were like having a falling out. They're the eldest couple on here. They're like in their 40s, like early 40s. I don't know how old he is, but I think he's also in his 40s. But they're just as messy. Like, they're kind of immature. I thought it was kind of crazy how like that was like their intro. I wish that we had time to build up off of that, but she was just kind of like, well, he did this and he did that, he did this, he did that, but they're still together. They're still talking. So it doesn't seem like it bothers you that much. As on the little like FaceTime thing is that she loves him, but she's not in love with him. And then he literally like threw his phone or something, and it was just very awkward because I'm just like, what is going on? Like, and Sienna are the first ones to have their little date. This is probably going to be the most boringest part that I'm going to be mentioning because there's not really much to say about their segment. But he greets her with some flowers, and then they meet at this little cooking school thing to make gnocchi. I thought it was tortellini the first time I watched it, and I was like, oh my god, is that tortellini? Because I do love some tortellinis, but I'd never tried gnocchi before. I've always wanted to try gnocchi, but they actually are making it from scratch, like, which is more intimate, and I feel like that would be a fun thing. But I wasn't really getting that vibe a lot when I was watching this segment. Like, I was like yawning pretty much because they're so like boring to me. Like, I don't know what it is, but they're just like, it's just not reeling me in. To Dominique and Alexis, when they had their date, Dominique planned like a sensual yoga thing. He said that he's really into yoga, and I was like, okay, he's into yoga. This could go cringe or this can go well. This can be cute and this can go weird. When he talks in the confession, he mentions how that like when he first met her, when he met her, he noticed that he was being catfished. Put the picture side by side, you were like, wait, there's a huge significant difference in her body, and her face looks a lot different than in person. She's a very gorgeous woman, but clearly there's some insecurities there. But he was just like not feeling that. He wasn't feeling her. He really was outright saying that he was not her type because he was expecting something else. And then when she saw him in person, she was like, what the hell? Which I understand, because a lot of people tend to catfish, and I feel like it's just kind of getting crazier and crazier. It looked like they FaceTime, but she probably didn't show her body a lot. When I do want to mention that when they did have their first intro, like in the beginning of the episode, like when Alexis was talking about Dominique, like he was just like, oh, were you practicing, like, did you practice twerking yet or something like that? And I was just like, wow, what an intro. Like, now we see how this is gonna go. How do I explain this? He is very into features more than, like, it seems like personality. Like, he goes for looks more than personality. That's what it feels like. So then they meet up at like some lunch thing. They had like this little picnic thing. The yoga thing wasn't even a yoga session. It was more like a way to make it sexual. That's why I said sensual, because it was very sexual. And then she was like, what the hell? Like, what kind of yoga session is this? Like, this is not what I was expecting. But girl, you should have expected it. Like, the way he was talking to her in the confessional, I mean, like, in the FaceTime in the beginning of the episode, like, I don't know. It seems like they're more into, like when I can envision their conversations, I feel like it's more like, oh my god, you look so good. Oh my god, you look so good. Like, all day. Like, it's nothing deeper than what it is. But they do both have children. But he does want more kids, and she's like, no, I don't want many more kids. I didn't know he had kids until I watched it again, because I think I missed a lot of, like, a few parts the first time I watched it, because I was like, I wasn't sure if I wanted to review it or not. But here we are. We're doing a little lunch, little picnic thing, and they both talk, Dominique talks about how jealous he can be and how clingy he is. So that's another red flag to me personally. We're gonna get into that more in the episode, but I don't want to give out too much right now. And Josh's date, they meet up at Santa Monica. I thought that was really cute. I haven't been to Santa Monica since probably like 2016. Santa Monica is such a cute little, like, I don't even know. I love the vibe there. I did have a lot of fun there from what I remember. I did take a lot of like pictures there, and my childhood friend was there because I think it was my brother's birthday around that time. And first meeting for Shay and Josh, he was very like affectionate, and I did not really see that a lot with the other couples. I mean, Alexis and Dominique were, but everyone else was kind of like awkward. I don't know. So it was nice to see them, like him embracing her and not being like, ew, what is that? And Millie's first date in person, it was a paddle boating session, and he also decided to bring a huge plush of a penguin because he knew that Millie really liked birds. So what was kind of crazy was that, I don't know, I feel like Millie is very much like a Gemini or something, because as she was driving up to the spot where he was at, she was like, oh my god, like, I'm gonna just reenact everything that she just did. Oh my god, like, that is like, no way. And then she was smiling, and then it went blank. Like, she had the most blankest face ever in like 0.2 seconds. Like, it was insane to watch because I was just like, what is going on? Like, she didn't seem that excited. I don't know, it kind of seemed very forced to me. It seemed very fake. I don't know, I wasn't really feeling it. I like the gestures, but with Millie's end, it was like not really vibing with me. So there's that. Greg looks like Lenny Kravitz to me. I don't know what it is. I think it's the vibe that he gives off. He has the scrungy look of Lenny Kravitz, and his tattoos and the way he dresses is what's giving it to me too. Next, for Chris and Sandra? Who's Sandra? Sandia. It auto-corrected to Sandra. For Chris and Sandia's first date in person, Chris decided to take her out to a helicopter ride because she's always wanted to do it. So she was like super hyped by that. This is probably the most I've ever seen her really smile in this episode, because she doesn't really smile. Like, she's kind of like stone cold a lot of the times. Chris was mentioning how much him and Sandia sexted a lot, but he kept calling it texting instead of just sexting. It was weird. Like, he was over explaining it and it was getting rather annoying. I don't know why they kept that in, but going to the fact that Aaron lost his ID somehow. I don't know how he did it, but as he's talking about how he lost his ID, they like pan to Joe in the car, and Joe is like agitated the whole time. And the first time I watched it, I was trying to figure out why she was so agitated, because like I said, I don't think I was paying attention to some of the parts, because I didn't understand why she was so mad going up to her date. Like, I thought she'd be more excited, but she wasn't. But she was super upset about how he lost his ID and how she was confused on how he didn't have a backup and stuff like that, which I get it. But decided to do a little picnic thing for them, also, as Joe was walking up to him, he doesn't like walk up to her, so it's like a little meeting thing. He decided to kind of like pose. Like, it was just kind of like he was leaning against this fence, and he was just kind of like awkward. She was very like head over heels in that moment, but I was very confused on why he was standing there. Aaron goes on to saying that since Joanna is Latina, he was like telling her that he used to take salsa lessons when he was like 8 years old. So then as they were dancing together, he kept messing up, because obviously he hasn't done it in over 20 years, so he's obviously gonna mess up. But personally, me, it wasn't that bad. I don't even know how to salsa dance, and so she was getting agitated because he kept messing up, and it was just like not really like an enjoyable moment to watch. It was just more like, okay, she's one of those people. She's very much like type A. She kept playing it off like she wasn't agitated, but I can very much tell. During their date, Joe noticed there's a bottle of wine at the little table. They have cheese and wine, and she's like, wait, Aaron doesn't drink, so how is this gonna work, because he doesn't drink? So she was kind of very hell-bent on the fact that he doesn't drink. And I don't remember him mentioning that. I don't think he mentioned it in the beginning of the episode, but because it was mostly the women that were talking about the dudes in the beginning. So he was having troubles opening the wine. He was just like, oh my god, I can't figure this out. And he's like, I think I've seen it on TV, something like that. And it was just like a very awkward moment again. I was getting the ick a lot. I was just kind of like, okay, it's obviously he doesn't know how to do it because he doesn't drink. Like, this isn't something that he does all the time. It seemed off since the beginning. Like, before they even linked up, it was just kind of like off. So for me personally, I don't think this is gonna last. She gave the date a 6 out of 10 because she felt like he was like trying too hard and to impress her because of the wine and all that shit and the salsa. I mean, he didn't really do much. And I don't feel like she would give him that much to do because she's so guarded. And Diamond's date, he takes her out to dinner. He goes on to say, and him had very much similar upbringings. They were both pastor kids, and I don't know if it was childhood trauma that was similar or what, but something that they bonded over was the fact that they both have similar childhoods. But he goes on to say that he made a mistake a couple years ago, which is the mistake that I mentioned earlier. He tried proposing to another woman. Really sat down, and she was already like, I need closure on this situation, the whole proposing thing, because she saw it all over his Facebook and that's how she knew. And so I was just kind of like, okay, well, I don't know. My mom was like asking me if I would rather get it over with on the date, like if something was bothering me, like would I mention it on the date or would I wait until after? And I think honestly, like, I would bring it up during, because some things for too long, it just makes it easier to add things, like more fuel to the fire, and I feel like it creates resentment. All he did honestly was, oh, I made a mistake, I'm sorry, do you forgive me? That's literally all he said. He took little to no accountability, and then she was back into being into his arms. It was just very much like weird. I don't know, I hope she got her closure, but I was very much like confused on what was happening, because I was just like, what is, like, what? Go on from that situation, because I was just kind of like, okay, they're too old to be acting like this. Like, they should be setting an example for the younger couples, but here we are. Someone was making spaghetti. I couldn't remember who it was, but someone was making spaghetti for everyone. And when the night was ending, Aaron was like, the younger Aaron was like rapping to Alexis, because she was like making little small conversations to everyone, and she's a very social being, I could tell. And I know that that's gonna backfire, because Dominique is very jealous. Like, he's extremely jealous, and he shows it more and more in this episode, and this is just the first episode. She's like, oh, what do you do? And he said that he's like a songwriter, he raps, he does, I think he writes or something. So he was spitting some bars, and then Dominique took it as like she was flirting with him for some reason. And I was like kind of confused on that, because all she was doing was just like making conversation, but it's like getting war flashbacks, honestly. Because you can't date a baddie if you can't handle the attention that they get. Like, you have to be so secure with yourself to be able to handle that, to know that they're not going to do anything. Boys meet downstairs while they're playing cards. Chris is like yelling at the top of his lungs. I think by this time everyone is pretty much drunk or tipsy or buzzed. It was like how he to everyone how he's like a huge womanizer. He ghosts women. Like, he will give them like the best time of their life, and this is what he said, and then he'll ghost them for like 2 weeks. And he was making fun of like someone at the table, I think it was Brandon, how he was like a lover boy or something. And I don't really know why people make, like, other men make fun of other men that like to be a lover boy. Like, this is like the issue with dating. Like, people think being nonchalant is cute all the time. Being emotionally unavailable is just such a turn off, and I think people are just very scared to show their vulnerable side, so they just would rather make digs at each other about it. It was like literally listening to like everything that he was saying, and he was like kind of degrading her. And at that point, he knew that she was around, and he was just kind of like making more derogatory comments about women that he slept with, talked to, all that stuff. He's like, I can get bitches, I can get them, like, I don't have an issue getting women. And so it was obviously making her feel some type of way. And then as she was trying to like listen more about what he was saying, because he was pretty much the only one really talking, he's just kind of like talking out loud, just letting out all his feelings. And this is kind of when I felt like he was just here for the cameras, because I don't feel like he's taking this seriously. This is kind of like a joke to him. I think he's just gonna be one of those people that are just gonna be like, this is a joke. So she ends up like leaving, because all the boys were just like, just go, like leave us alone, whatever, which I was like kind of weirded out by that. Night goes on. Alexis makes a comment about Greg's shorts. They're like these very bright yellow shorts, and she kept calling them hoochie daddy shorts, which I think are basically like booty shorts for men. And it was always like, oh, you with the hoochie daddy, and he was kind of like brushing it off, like he was joking along with her, but he wasn't like feeding into it really. And this is when it kind of gets kind of messy, because this is when like the DV starts, because obviously now that I'm talking about it out loud, I could tell that like the whole night Dominique was just kind of like brewing and just sitting in this anger, and it was just kind of like about to blow up. And so kept making comments how like he was wearing the hoochie daddy shorts even in the morning. Didn't like that he kept making, like, she kept repeating the comment hoochie daddy shorts all the time. She kept like dancing and kept like it was just like to me it was just, I got it the first, second, and third time, but she kept saying it over and over again, and I get that's annoying, but she was also very drunk, so it was just kind of like, I don't know. He saw it as flirting, of course, and that's when also he was growing more mad at her over this. So at 2 a.m. Dominique confronts her on the fact that she was making all those comments about Greg's shorts and saying that he felt like she was flirting with him. And so he was like, well, what if I did the same thing like you did and told someone, they're like a woman, that their ass looks good? And she was like, I get that. She apologized and everything, and he was still kind of going on and on about it. And she was kind of like adding more fuel to the fire, I guess, because she kept getting louder and more like annoyed how, like, I think probably because he kept bringing up how frustrated he was, even though like she apologized, she probably was like, why is he still mad? But I think he felt like it was disrespectful because he was right there as she was saying all these comments and stuff like that. So it was just kind of like, what, well, how do you feel about me? This is disrespectful to what we have, all that stuff. And took a step further, and he gets in her face, and he felt like she just kept saying like, I feel like you're disrespecting me. It was just like he kept saying like, stop playing with me. Like, he just felt like, I think his ego was bruised or something, and he just was like, I think he probably felt like she wasn't taking him seriously, like his feelings seriously, because, well, one, she was drunk. Okay, that's the huge factor in this. Like, she was drunk, and yes, the comments were very inappropriate, but the fact that he put his hands on her was what got me, because I felt like it should have never drove to that point. It should have never drove to that point. And at first Josh was like downstairs, and so was Shay. Shay and Josh were downstairs, and they were kind of like watching this all unfold. So a lot of people were upstairs. They weren't really like seeing what's going on. They didn't know what was going on, and they probably thought it was just like them goofing off. Josh said vividly that he felt like they were just kind of playing around because they were laughing and stuff like that. But if you could see, Dominique was already like at 100 already, and Dominique was already at 100, and Alexis was like down, like probably laughing because she was like, why is he putting his hands on me and grabbing me like that? And she probably was kind of diffuse the situation and try not to make it look so bad. But so that's why he didn't intervene initially. So yeah, he ends up pushing her and she almost hits like the table, and it pretty much continues on to the next episode. So basically just it continues on the next episode. They start like hitting each other and she grabs like a pan to try to defend herself. And yeah, it gets really messy. It gets really bad because he kind of like bucked at her like she was a dude. Like, it was very, very weird. It was very scary to watch because this is all the first episode, and I feel like it was blown out of proportion. And like validating him. I keep calling him a her because he's giving very much like a bitch to me. So, and also his name is very feminine to me, so that's probably also why. But yeah, anyways, yeah, it got really messy. He ended up getting like kicked off the show, and spoiler, she got kicked off the show because they had they had a hands-off policy or something like that. So but she was hitting him because she was defending herself, and he was like pushing her and shoving her, and he even like grabbed her throat the very first time that he got in her face, and he was kind of like yelling at her while like squeezing her throat, and it was just like, wow, this is insane. Like, I felt uncomfortable watching it. It was very much like, how did they let this air? Like, this could have been prevented. I wish that he got charged because this is probably like not even the first time he's done it. I feel like he just felt way too comfortable with putting his hands on a woman, that I feel like that's why he did it. That's all for this video. I hope you enjoy. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye guys.